So this is a drawing of a circular piece of metal that instead of needing the cutout or the notch in the middle, like what you did on the other ones, the notch is out here on the edge. So there is, instead of having to do it from the middle, all your measurements from the middle, you have to do it from the edges of the cutout. So since it's a circle, we know that if this went all the way to the end and down, this would be the diameter. All the way across is the diameter. Okay, so we still use the diameter measurement. But in order to figure out what size this little cutout is right here, this little cutout piece is called X. And to determine how wide it is, we need to know how far it is from the edge to the edge of that cutout piece. So that's our Z measurement right here. Okay, so that's the Z that it gives us. Okay, the only problem is, and we found this out last class period, the only problem is that it doesn't tell us what the measure of Z is. We're supposed to use Z and the diameter. It gives us the measure of the diameter right here, but it forgets to tell us what the measure of Z is for this particular example problem. However, we know what it is because they've worked this out for us and already plugged it in, even though they didn't give it to us. So Z over here is actually 1 5/8 inch. Not 1 point, but 1 5/8 inch is what my Z measurement was. And then we change it to a decimal right here for our formula. So the measure of X is whatever the diameter is, so the full length all the way across, okay, minus these two measures here that are accounting for it, right? So we drew it all the way down, notch. So the measure of Z is like this measure. So there's two of them. So to figure out how wide that space is right there, we have to take the diameter and subtract both of these Z's to figure out how wide that space is right there. Okay, so that's what the formula here is telling us. Take the diameter, which is 3.5, and subtract 2 of the Z measurements. Okay, so 3.5 was the diameter, and we're going to subtract 2 times the 1 5/8, or the 1.625, which is 3.25. So 3.5 minus 3.25 is 0.25. So that's the width of X. So now I know that X is 0.25 inches wide. Okay. Now the measure of Y is taking the width of X away from the diameter. So the measure of Y is D minus 1/4. So now that we know, or that they give us that measure right there, the 1/4 is how tall that little notch is. So the diameter, which is 3.5 minus 0.25, gives us 3.25 inches. So this is how that we figure out what this measurement is, which we're calling Y in our diagram. So you've got to use the diagrams and how they've drawn and how they've labeled things in order to answer these questions more than anything. Just to know what it's talking about and things. Okay. So that's how you will do problems 1 and 2 here. Then down here, this next part, right, you're looking for the diameter. Okay, and the diameter is how wide your circle is, right? When it goes right through the middle. It has to go through the middle to be the diameter. And if you recall, the area of a circle is pi r squared, right? And a diameter is 2 times r. So because we are trying to figure out the diameter, we have to undo this part so we can figure out what the radius is and then multiply it by 2. That is what this is. Since we have to undo the squaring, that's why there's a square root symbol in there. So you're going to take whatever the area is and divide it by pi and then square root it to get the r. And then the 2 comes in because this only equals r. And we have to multiply it by 2 to get the diameter. So the only measure that this gives you is the area to substitute in. Because everything else we know. We know what pi is, 3.14, and we know what the number 2 is, right? So the only unknown in our side of the equation we're substituting in is a, because we're trying to solve for d. On the back side, one other example here, okay, is this taper. How to do a taper, and this is the taper per inch. So how much it's tapering every inch. So that's what the TPI stands for, is taper per inch. So again, use the diagram to help you visualize what it's asking you to do. So it tells you all of your pieces of your all of the pieces that you're going to need for your equation. All right, so here's all of your pieces, and you need to know what y is, so you're going to take z minus x. So it gives you z minus x is 5. So that's your taper. Okay, so this is solving for the taper. Okay, and then to solve for the TPI, you're going to use this equation. Okay, so TPI is your d, which it gives you here, that's something it gives you, minus your d. Okay, so big D is your big side, little d is your little side, your end result after it gets tapered. Okay, and you're going to divide it by whatever your taper is, whatever you solved for over here for your y, to get your TPI. Okay. So all of these measures and things are given to you. So this is your assignment. It's just using the diagrams mostly to help you calculate things based on the formula. So you should be able to do these now. I know there wasn't a lot of explanation there, but it's really just knowing how to substitute things in for your formulas. Okay, so use those formulas that it gives you and substitute things in.